Hey everyone, thank you so much for your feedback. Your comments have been awesome, and I've been paying attention. I've made a couple of changes to the channel starting right now. First, I've overhauled the on screen avatar. Now you see me much more like I look in real life, so hopefully that makes things feel a little bit more authentic. Second, by popular request, I'm cutting the background music starting now. You asked for a clearer audio, and I listened. You guys have been incredibly respectful and engaging in the comments. I truly appreciate the awesome community we're building. Now, let's stop talking about the channel updates and get to the movie. Jurassic Park functions as a multi layered commentary on the role of technology. While its primary narrative explores the concept of de extinction, the film's deeper meaning examines the unforeseen consequences of technological innovation, a groundbreaking achievement in its own right. In its use of computer generated dinosaurs, the movie's plot underscores a crucial warning. It is not merely a caution against resurrecting extinct species, but a broader critique of human error and the dangers inherent in prioritizing expediency over quality, a theme most clearly exemplified by the actions of the character Dennis Nedry. Jurassic Park tells the story of an ambitious and dangerous theme park on a remote island where dinosaurs have been brought back to life through advanced genetic engineering. The park's creator, billionaire John Hammond, invites a team of scientists, paleontologist Alan Grant, paleobotanist Ellie Sattler, and mathematician Ian Malcolm to inspect and endorse the park before it opens to the public. While touring the park with Hammond's two grandchildren, the group's skepticism about the park's safety turns to alarm when a disgruntled computer programmer, Dennis Nedry, disables the security systems to steal dinosaur embryos. This act of sabotage shuts down the electric fences and locks, allowing the most dangerous dinosaurs, including a Tyrannosaurus rex and an intelligent velociraptor, to escape their enclosures. The rest of the film becomes a thrilling survival story as the visitors and a few remaining staff members are hunted by the loose dinosaurs. The group must work together to evade the creatures, reactivate the park's power, and find a way to escape the island. In the process, they discover that the dinosaurs are breeding, a catastrophic flaw caused by using frog DNA to fill genetic gaps, proving that nature finds a way to overcome humanity's attempts at control. Ultimately, the survivors escape, but the film serves as a cautionary tale about the ethical and practical dangers of unchecked ambition and the misuse of technology. I have a long career in computer technology. Jurassic Park came out early in that career when I was a young airman in the United States Air Force, stationed at Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska. That summer, we were expecting our first child. I now make a living in my primary job as a cybersecurity consultant. Many of my clients struggle with having the resources to manage the day to day risks of operating their business in the world of the internet and hacking. It has evolved much in the last 33 years. But one thing I usually tell my clients is to prepare for the worst. John Hammond, the proprietor of Jurassic Park, should have prepared for the worst, a crucial lesson many companies today ignore. While a lack of preparation makes for a thrilling movie, the consequences in real life are terrifying. If I had accepted every offer for free credit monitoring from data breaches that have affected me, I'd be covered for life by now. Companies must learn to prepare for the worst, or they'll be left picking up the pieces. For most companies, it's not a matter of if or even when you will be breached, but how to respond when you are. The reason, depending on who you ask, is that careless employees are responsible for as much as 60% of data breaches. Many companies spend thousands or even millions on protecting the perimeter of their networks, but often it's a user who doesn't recognize a malicious email that brings the systems down. The average cost of a ransomware attack is now over $5 million. Benjamin Franklin once said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That is true today. If you were a business owner, spending an extra 100,000 on hiring the right people, training them properly, and paying them well enough would save the company an embarrassing $5 million ransom, I suspect you would do it. From the moment the first raptor handler was attacked, the glaring lack of foresight from Jurassic Park's leadership team was evident. The entire park operated without any meaningful backups or contingency plans. From the central control systems to the fences, there was no redundancy in place to handle a crisis. This systemic failure, led by key figures like John Hammond, ultimately cost key personnel, including Robert Muldoon and Ray Arnold, their lives. Hammond's repeated assertion that no expense was spared was clearly a lie. The park's numerous failures point to corners being cut in a rush to open. Let's examine how a little extra spending could have saved Hammond and his investors millions. Nedry's character in Jurassic Park serves as a cautionary tale about the intersection of trust, greed, and cybersecurity, a field in its infancy in the early 1990s. As a sole IT professional, Nedry held a position of unchallenged authority, and his actions went unquestioned as long as the park systems functioned. His betrayal wasn't simply a matter of underpayment. His inherent lack of integrity meant that he would have stolen the dinosaur embryos regardless of his salary. The park's fatal flaw, however, was in its initial oversight, hiring Nedry in the first place. This points to a deeper issue of neglecting a fundamental security practice, properly vetting and screening potential employees, though perhaps more cumbersome at the time. This shows critical steps were clearly bypassed. This shortcut, driven by a desire for convenience or cost savings, ultimately made the entire operation vulnerable to a single, untrustworthy individual. Nedry's role as the sole IT person created a single point of failure, a critical flaw in the park's design. This issue is a fundamental principle in systems development, similar to the checks and balances used in accounting, where having two people can prevent a single individual from compromising an entire system. Had there been a second IT engineer, they could have provided oversight and filled in during absences, like when Nedry was away. This would have gone a long way toward protecting the park. While the film never reveals Nedry's exact salary, the cost of hiring a second engineer would have been a worthy investment. In the early 1990s, a skilled programmer's salary ranged from $50,000 to $90,000 annually. The decision not to make this relatively modest investment in a second employee, foregoing redundancy and oversight, was a significant example of the park's dangerous cost cutting and flawed risk management. In the early 1990s, many cybersecurity terms and concepts we use today simply hadn't been invented yet. As the internet was in its infancy, so were security measures like firewalls. The term insider threat, for example, at that time primarily referred to threats within the government rather than within a company's network. While it is unfair to judge security practices of 1993 by today's standards, some well known concepts of the time were ignored. While initially stymied, experienced engineer Ray Arnold eventually gained access to Nedry's computer system, revealing a significant security flaw. Arnold's success underscores that Nedry's password was either easily guessable or worse, written down and left in his cluttered workspace. This poor security practice was compounded when Arnold, in his rush, seemingly removed the password requirement for the system altogether. Consequently, After the reboot, a new and equally serious vulnerability emerged, allowing Lex to lock the doors without needing any authentication. A failure to guess Nedry's password by Arnold was only part of a larger systemic failure at Jurassic Park. A more critical oversight, and a common practice even in the 1990s, was an emergency administrator or break glass account. Such a measure would have provided Arnold with a secure, predetermined way to access the system, bypassing the need to crack Nedry's credentials. The solution would have been as simple as retrieving a username and password from a locked safe. This key security practice, still neglected by many organizations today, would have given the park a vital fail-safe in a crisis. A significant vulnerability was the control room's physical security. The room lacked a basic manual mechanical lock. It seems a fundamental oversight that they didn't plan for a power outage with a simple 19th century level failsafe. This highlights a critical lapse in planning on Arnold's part. System redundancies were another critical failure at Jurassic Park. The park not only relied on a single programmer, but also lacked backups for key systems, most notably the power. The existence of these single points of failure can't be blamed on Dennis Nedry. That responsibility falls to the park's chief engineer, Ray Arnold. Even in the 1990s, principles of redundancy, resilience, and backups were standard engineering practice. Arnold's exhausted appearance suggests he was stretched too thin, underscoring that the park's management failed to provide him with the necessary resources and support. Overall, Hammond just needed to hire more people. The lack of thorough research was another critical flaw at Jurassic Park. Since living dinosaurs don't exist, our knowledge of their power, hunting methods, and social structures is based on educated guesses from fossil records and extrapolations from modern animals. Yet this uncertainty was no excuse for using frog DNA to fill in genetic gaps. The cloner, Dr. Henry Wu, failed to account for a well-known biological fact. Many species of frogs can change their sex for reproductive purposes. This oversight, which ultimately allowed the dinosaurs to breed, demonstrated a dangerous lack of due diligence in their research. Even more evidence of poor research can be found in the park's flawed ecological design. Although specific plants were cloned for the herbivore dinosaurs, the failure to remove existing modern plant species created a dangerous and unstable environment. This is clearly illustrated by the sick Triceratops, who became ill after consuming berries poisonous to her species. The park's creators overlooked a fundamental principle. For these ancient animals, contemporary flora was not just invasive, it was a life-threatening hazard. Ultimately, the person most to blame for the disaster is John Hammond. Steven Spielberg brilliantly subverted the typical villain trope by making him a seemingly harmless grandfatherly figure. While Hammond shows a degree of remorse at the end, his primary responsibility was to ensure the park's safety, a task he consistently failed at due to his focus on cutting corners. He could have hired a second engineer to oversee Nedry and more engineers to help Arnold design vital redundancies and backups. Furthermore, bringing Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler in much earlier in the process could have been a game changer. Grant could have advised Wu on which modern species DNA to use, and Sattler could have consulted on the landscaping and flora. Instead, Hammond merely wanted their stamp of approval, not their genuine expertise. John Hammond's failure to prepare for the worst was a deadly error. My recommendations focus on strengthening his park through improved personnel, system redundancies, and physical security. For starters, he needed to hire more people, especially engineers and programmers, and consult experts during the design process to catch flaws before they became disasters. It's not enough to build a park. You must also staff it with the right expertise. Employees should also be trained in basic cybersecurity principles like secure password management to prevent simple mistakes from causing system wide failures. Second, the park's technology needed a major overhaul. Hammond should have built in redundancies in all critical systems and implemented break glass accounts and other fail safes to ensure that a single point of failure couldn't bring the entire park down. Finally, while the technology was flawed, the physical infrastructure also needed improvements. He should have used manual door locks as a backup to the automated system and conducted more thorough research on the dinosaurs and the park's ecology. A proper assessment of potential risks, including the park's landscaping, could have prevented escapes and contained the chaos. It's a good thing the film Jurassic Park was so well made because the actual park was a total mess. That spectacular failure, of course, is what makes a movie fun. Perfection is boring. But who's really to blame for everything going wrong? To kick off the discussion, I ran a quick survey as I was finishing this video. The current results show a clear split. 50% of you believe that John Hammond is the one responsible for the park's failures. A strong 42% disagree, putting the blame squarely on programmer Dennis Nedry. The remaining 8% point to the investors. My next video project was going to be about Logan's Run, but the recent passing of the legendary actor Robert Redford changed my mind. Thanks to my mother, who is a huge fan of his, I've seen most of his films. Among my favorites is The Natural. Although the film is set in the 1930s, its themes have many parallels to 21st century sports. After that, I'll return to my schedule and do Logan's Run for another discussion about artificial intelligence. I hope to see you then.